So the cell membrane, this is the cell membrane interview. So the cell membrane is made out of phospholipids, the phospholipid bilayer. So this is a phospholipid. This is the head, this is the tail. The head is hydrophilic and the tail is hydrophobic, which means the head attracts water, the tail repels water, and it can also be called the polar head and the non-polar head, tail. I said the tail repels water, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
So then next we have the
peripheral proteins. And so those, if this is the peripheral protein, if it's on the outside, it can act as enzymes and attach to other proteins. And if it's on the inside, it'll act as support and structure.
when it's out here.
Yeah, on the inside. This is the outside, this is the inside. So, yeah. Okay, next. Cholesterol.
This is cholesterol, and it is used for the fluidity and the shape of the cell.
Yeah, membrane, cell membrane.
Cell membrane, yes.
And then we have glycoprotein is glycoprotein and glycolipid. This is glycoprotein, this is glycolipid. These two structures help with cell recognition. Next is transmembrane protein,
Which is this, and it's used to transport the proteins through it, which is used for, it's used for transport. And then another protein that is used for transport is the aquaporin, and it's used to transport water.
and the transmembrane protein doesn't just transport other proteins. It transports just a bunch of stuff in general.
Yeah.
That's too big to get into the
cell membrane.
But we'll get into that later. All right, simple diffusion.
Oh, wait, don't we have to talk about the structure? Is that no? So then, transport, simple diffusion. So simple diffusion is basically when proteins or...
Not proteins. Proteins are too big.
So oxygen and carbon dioxide.
Small particles.
Okay, when small particles are able to
Small-
go through the membrane...
These are not drawn to scale.
Not drawn to scale, obviously.
Huge.
Yes.
So, so we have an example here: oxygen and carbon dioxide. So oxygen will go in, and carbon dioxide will go out
Because breathing.
Yeah, and then there's always more oxygen on the outside, so it goes in. There's more carbon dioxide on the inside, so it goes out.
So
it goes from you go.
High concentration to low concentration and it requires no energy because it's diffusion.
It's passive.
Passive.
Okay.
So then next is facilitated diffusion.
And so facilitated
Oh, wait.
diffusion.
Did we talk about how it...
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah.
Facilitated diffusion is basically when it's still diffusion, so the particles still go from high to low, but now the particles are too big to get in directly through the cell membrane, so it goes through
A protein channel.
Yay! So here's glucose going in. So glucose always comes in because there's always more glucose on the outside. Because once the glucose goes in, it's automatically being used it's already being attached to the ATP particle, and then it's turned into some other thing that's not glucose no more.
Yes. It also requires no energy. If it's diffusion, it does not require ATP.
Yeah, diffusion's always passive.
It transports glucose and amino acids.
Yeah, that's.
Yes.
And then next we have active transport.
Oh wait, no. Let's go through
Osmosis.
water. Yeah, osmosis is the.
Diffusion of water.
Yes.
So-
So basically, it's the same thing as facilitated diffusion, but then we have
It's
it's
just-
for water.
Yeah.
For water. So it goes to the aquaporin.
Sometimes water just goes straight to the cell membrane, but we're having.
So
the
it
water.
goes from high water potential to low water potential because it's the diffusion of water.
Yeah, so high water potential is where there's less, stuff in the solution.
Yeah, so there's more water.
Yeah, and then low water potential is there's more stuff in the fluid, so less water.
Yes.
Okay. Active transport
So then active transport is
requires ATP.
yes, which is energy, and then you attach it to a protein, and then it allows it from low
Low to high.
low potential to high potential.
Low concentration to high concentration.
So an example of active transport would be the NK pump. So
NAK pumps.
NAK pump.
Sodium and potassium.
Sodium potassium pump. So the sodium goes in. So it's three sodium and 2 potassium, and so they go through in opposite directions at the same time. So that's called an antiport, and a symport would be when two molecules go in at the same time in the same direction.
Yeah. And then we have bulk transport, which is it's either endocytosis or exocytosis. So that's endocytosis is when the cell like envelopes around and eats like this. It eats the large group of
So the cell
whatever the heck that
membrane
is.
kind of wraps around the group of proteins. So it says this is a group of proteins that just need to be eaten.
Yeah, so it's just like the cell membrane just goes like this and shoves it in, and it when it shoves in, it pinches
It
off.
forms a bubble.
Yeah, it forms a bubble from the cell membrane, and then cell membrane overall gets smaller. And then exocytosis is the opposite, so it just comes out, and the cell membrane will bigger.
Yeah.
Because the bubble,
Because
membrane
it
from
adds
the
more membrane.
yeah, from the bubble, the membrane from the bubble will get added to cell membrane.
Yes. Phagocytosis is an example of endocytosis and is exactly what endocytosis is. It just like envelops the group of proteins items. Penocytosis is cellular drinking, but
It just
so
takes
it
in
envelops
fluid.
the fluid. Yeah, it takes in the fluid around it.
Yeah, and so
With phagocytosis and penocytosis, the cell does get smaller because it's an example of endocytosis.
uh huh.
A lot of sisses.
Okay. And so the cell is in a solution, it's just in stuff. So it's either gonna be in a hypertonic solution, isotonic solution, or a hypotonic
hypotonic
solution. So that whatever solution it's in decides
Which way the water flows.
yeah, so we have two water particles here. So depending on if the cell is in a hypertonic solution, there's a lot of
Tonic in the solution.
so there's a lot of stuff outside. So that means the water has to go from the inside out to where there's low water potential.
So the cell will start
Because
shrinking.
the inside has high water potential, the outside has low water potential. So the water goes out, the cell starts shrinking in an isotonic solution
It's when it's equal and then it just goes back and forth.
freely.
Yes.
Then
Hypotonic solution.
It's the opposite of hyper.
Yes.
Is-
So there's not enough tonic in the solution outside the cell. So the water will flow into the cell and it'll make it bigger.
yeah, because there's high water potential outside and there's low water potential inside. So the water's gonna go in. And that basically makes the cell bigger.
Is that
Okay, I think that's it.
okay?